Well, it's another night of severe weather over parts of the lower Mississippi Valley. We'll be taking a look at that. And the weather in the east actually was pretty decent today. We'll talk about that, the rest of the week ahead, which includes a change to, uh, well, I don't want to say colder weather, but certainly, let's say more, seasonal or even a little bit below normal in terms of temperatures going forward. It's cold in Northwest Europe and in Great Britain. For this time of year in early June, there are places that are not going to get out of the much of England and Scotland not getting much out of the 40s over the next couple of days. So there's that. There's us, Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee, on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The Tempest weather station is easy to install. You run it from your mobile device, and it keeps a history of highs, lows, rainfall, everything else. The link is on the description to this podcast. Anything you purchase there, use the coupon code Spring 2024 because if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10 big percent off, Joe.
And don't forget tomorrow night on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we are going to have a very, I think, a very interesting guest. Uh, usually have forecasters and people who are doing you know are into that sort of thing. But we're going to go a different route tomorrow. We're going to have John Molick of the podcast Headlines and History. John is intelligence director for the New York State National Guard, and he's going to tell us how weather is disseminated to the higher ups, and maybe we'll talk about how weather has played a role in past wars and other things. So he's going to be here. So make sure you're here. That's tomorrow night at 7:35 on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And speaking of Joe and Joe, here we are. I want to tell you, Joe, that I had this afternoon some a few downpours and thunderstorms. However, those thunderstorms were not accompanied by strong gusty winds, nor were they accompanied by heavy rain, and we had infrequent, non-dangerous lightning.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Did you hear what I said?
not really.
Well,
I
what
was.
happened? Did I drop out?
You dropped out. That's why I asked you. Are you there?
Oh, okay. What I said was that we did have downpours and a thunderstorm here, but the thunderstorm was not accompanied by strong gusty winds, heavy rain, or frequently dangerous lightning.
Well, well, then who was it? Tom Morgan who used to say that
No,
on Kate.
that was Tom Grant.
Tom Grant.
That
Wow,
was a
that.
Tom Grant.
It,
Showers and thunderstorms.
yes. Well, we had a lovely day here today. Another very nice day, and tomorrow too should be, excuse me, very nice. Now, interestingly, in the mid afternoon, late afternoon, it got rather cloudy for a while, and it looked actually like we were going to have a brief shower. That never popped up, at least in my immediate area. But now we're back into a clearing trend, and we should have ourselves a decent night overnight tonight. Another very nice day, and maybe even a touch cooler because the winds tomorrow are going to be coming in from an onshore direction from the east and east northeast. So looks like we're going to put together yet another reasonably nice day here, Joe.
Right, and everybody, of course, was cheering over the fact that it didn't rain this weekend after 16 straight weekends with rain on at least one of the two weekend days. It didn't happen yesterday. However, we are sad to inform everyone that it is rather likely that that streak of dry weekends is going to end at one.
Well, you probably have been looking at the GFS and have been taking note of the fact that it's up to its old tricks again and trying to develop next week some kind of a tropical system that comes
Oh,
up out of.
I'm not even thinking about that. I was more, just talking about the whole setup for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with the upper low and all the rest of it.
Okay. Well,
I didn't even notice that it had a tropical storm coming up the
well,
east coast.
it has some kind of a system that is coming from off of the north coast of Florida and right up along the eastern seaboard. But that's not for this week. That would be for next week,
Right, right.
on the 12th, 13th, 14th. So if it does indeed transpire. Now I know that there's some local broadcasting
They didn't
operation.
me- they didn't
10-day.
mention it, did they?
Excuse me.
They didn't mention it, did they?
I don't know. I don't think that they mentioned it, but it is after all a 10-day outlook, and you know how valuable the 10-day outlook is.
Hmm.
At least some broadcast outlets up here.
By the way, can you just enlighten us on two things, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing is, I saw this yesterday. I was seeing this yesterday. I forgot to mention it last night, but they were talking about uh, another solar storm thing and northern lights.
Yeah, well, but you see, the problem is that a lot of the flares that have been erupting on the sun, the flare activity has not shot directly at the Earth. It's been more like a sideways angle, and they were nowhere near as strong as or came together in the same manner that we had last month. So, maybe they're just doing it, or maybe the Space Environment Center was doing it just to be on the safe side, just in case something did actually erupt in the skies. But as you are probably aware, nothing like that did happen. So, no northern lights this time around.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, the other thing they're just going endlessly about this parade of planets
Yeah.
lining up. Okay. And I don't know if did you closely look at that graphic that graphic I sent you about the parade of planets?
It's been going all around the internet, social media, and I hope nobody out there who saw it bothered to get up this morning. Because if you did, you were in for a big disappointment. Because most of the planets, Mercury and Jupiter, for example, much too close to the vicinity of the sun to be readily seen. Neptune and Uranus, those are two planets that are visible only with binoculars or a good telescope, and you have to know exactly where to point them to see them. The only objects that would have been visible, and ironically, one object that was obvious but was not mentioned in this ballyhoo, was the moon. The moon was a crescent phase this morning. You would have been able to see that. And two of the planets, Mars and Saturn, were also out there, and you would have been able to see them naked eye. But this alignment that was being promoted on social media, and a lot of the views of the planets were as if you were able to see them through a telescope, like the rings of Saturn. You can't see them without a telescope. Otherwise, Saturn just looks like a regular star in the sky. So once again, it was another case of I don't know who exactly was the original um, place that put this out, but it was pretty much a case of trying to get people to log on, or trying to, what's the term I'm looking for when they try to attract you with some headline, um, and you click clickbait. It was
Right.
clickbait.
Well,
There's no.
I have this I sent you this graphic, and I'm surprised you didn't notice this. But I highlighted it for you, just if you happen to notice the planet that between Mars and Uranus.
Um, no, what was the planet? Krypton?
Krypton.
Krypton?
Krypton.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, this
Uh,
was on a local Union County, Georgia page here, but person was having some fun with it, and they used the one with the Krypton uh, planet in there. So I thought that
I
was
thought
kind of
Krypton. I don't. I thought Krypton exploded.
it did, but it was wasn't it just be wasn't it supposed to be beyond our solar system? I'm trying to remember.
What, Krypton?
Yeah,
Yeah, and in fact, it's going around. You know the star that the planet Krypton apparently is going around, or was?
no, no,
Rayo.
Rayo.
Yeah.
Really? The star? No kidding.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, wow, that is insane. That is amazing. Oh, see, you're universally famous.
Yes, indeed.
Right. You're
Jor-El,
big. You're big everywhere.
yeah, Jor-El and Kal-El. Is that the name of Superman on Krypton? Kal-El?
I saw a an interview clip of Christopher Reeves, okay, um, about that was Marlon Brando who played uh, his father.
Jor-El.
Yeah,
Jor-El.
right. And what a god awful diva Brando was. They paid him a huge amount of money to play that really small part, and how he would just he wouldn't show up for work. When he'd show up, they'd have to do things with 20 or 30 takes, because every extra day that he worked, he got a huge sum of money for that extra day. So Mr. Reeves was not a fan of Mr. Brando. Let's put it that way.
The interesting thing about that um, Superman 1 and Superman 2, that Superman was able to talk to his parents. And of course, his parents had long since passed away. And I said, how stupid is this? They're dead. They're dead, and yet he's able to communicate with them. How is that possible? But you know what, Joe? The interesting thing is, and I don't know if you've seen this. I saw this yesterday, I think, on Sunday morning, CBS Sunday Morning, and also on 60 Minutes, where they have people who are from World War II. They have these veterans sit down in a studio, and they ask them literally hundreds of questions. They do it over a 5 day period, and every question you could possibly imagine or ask. And then a computer sorts the questions out. And then this all goes into a museum.
All
And
right.
you're able to sit down in a seat, press a button, up comes this veteran who either is on the verge of passing away or has passed away. Let's say he has passed away. He's gone. He's done. But you're able to communicate with him. You're able to talk to him. You're able to ask him questions.
Yeah.
And since he has answered virtually everything and anything regarding his life or regarding the war or everything else, and it's all done, through computer technology, you ask the person a question and he'll answer you. And I'm saying to myself, this is obviously the technology in which Superman was able to talk to his
Well,
parents.
clearly, uh,
Yeah, amazing.
clearly. Well, and the thing is, I mean, an 18-year-old that went into World War II in 1940 was born in 1922. So if they're still around, they're 101 years old. There are not many veterans left alive from World War II.
Right,
You know,
right.
so that's very interesting. Um, who knows what they're going to
Carfarello,
do
thank
by
you.
who knows
Thank,
what they're going to do if we last long enough. What they're going to do by the time you and I depart this planet.
well, when I saw those reports, I said to myself, "Damn, I wish they had that technology when my grandparents were alive, or when my grandmother was alive.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to introduce my grandparents to either my son or daughter, or even my grandson.
Hmm.
That would have been wonderful. But you're right. Maybe as we get older, that'll become available not just to war veterans or people, let's say, who were survivors of the Holocaust or whatever, but regular people. I think it would be wonderful.
Well, look, I'm just going to say that, since this is on YouTube, so we're going to be, these podcasts we do are going to be there for all of eternity. We should at least now say a big loving hello to our great, 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 great grandchildren who are out there.
Yes.
So, yes, who may one day stumble upon the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which in the land of the living you can stumble upon it Sunday through Thursday at 7:35. You know
And
me, Joe. Never waste an opportunity for a shameless self promotion.
the sad irony also, Joe, is that I remember when Desi Arnaz passed away, Ricky Ricardo, to many of our fans of I Love Lucy. I have one television station used a clip from I Love Lucy where Lucy is crying, saying, "I don't want you to go, Ricky. I don't want you to go." And Desi Arnaz says, "Well, if we all
Yeah,
have to go
have to go
sometime,
sometime.
unless
Yep.
you know something that we don't." And
No, I don't.
no, I don't.
That was a first season episode.
And
Um,
that's that when you saw that you know as part of the obituary, the on-air obituary for Desi Arnaz, it was very poignant in many
oh
ways.
yeah, very much so. Um, all right, let's get moving here and take a look at what's going on tonight. Chuck Cardillo bags the tip jar. Um, Thank you very much, Chuck, for doing that. And we've got not a whole, unlike past nights and over the past couple of weeks where we've had a ton. We'd come on at this time and have a ton of severe thunderstorm watches and warnings and all the rest of it. We've got some stuff going on, but it's compared to what it has been in past nights, it's kind of minimal in parts of western Oklahoma, northwest Texas, and in northeast Texas into Arkansas and northwest Louisiana. We actually do have a slew of flash flood warnings up in northeast Texas. I think I'm getting pounded by rain again. And the other thing to point out is that in South Texas, we've got some heat advisories up, and I point this out not that it's a big deal, except for the places where it's going to be hot, but it does kind of signify the fact that we're going to probably start to see a heat ridge build from Texas and Mexico northward over the next 10 days or so, and perhaps maybe in the longer range if the trough gets out of the way in the eastern part of the United States, maybe around mid-month or beyond, we might be getting into some hot weather. We also have heat advisories up, and I think those purples are, I'm going to say that they are excessive heat warnings, and they are excessive heat warnings for the southern half of Arizona, Southern California, the interior of Central and Northern California, as well as Southern Nevada. Some flood watches up, flash flood watches up in parts of South Central Oklahoma, also in Southern Wisconsin, also in Northwest Wisconsin, and in the western, yeah, actually, that's all Northwest Wisconsin there, and a couple of counties in Minnesota, also a few counties in Central Idaho and on up into western Washington state. And you also have some wind advisories and high wind watches up for eastern Washington eastward into Montana. And as we check out the satellite loop tonight, it's nice in the east. There's this low that's between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and you kind of can see it on the upper right. It's been there for a couple of days, and it's got high pressure sort of pinned in between, so that's keeping the next cold front that it'll eventually get here, this weather system that you see running from the Great Lakes down into Texas, but that's not going to really get here until sometime later Wednesday or more than likely Wednesday night into Thursday.
It's going to be very hot, as you just mentioned, Joe. But I mean, on the Climate Prediction Center's outlook, they've got exceptionally hot temperatures for the next 6 to 10, even 8 to 14 days over the western United States. Meantime, as we pointed out last night, from the Midwest eastward into just about the northeastern United States, temperatures should be averaging cooler today than normal over the next 6 to 10 and even the 8 to 14 day outlook. So, at least in our part of the country, the air conditioners will be getting a little bit of a rest. And on the chat board, Mrs. Rayo pointing out that today here in Putnam Valley, we reached a high of 88 degrees. And it felt like it was 88 degrees out there, especially in the mid and late afternoon hours. I'm not sure what the dew point was, but we actually did have to turn on the air conditioning by day's end because it was a little bit uncomfortable out there with the heat and also with the humidity.
Yes, the humidity. You mentioned temperatures, so I figured this would be a good time to switch over to what's going on over Europe, particularly in northwestern Europe and up into Great Britain and Ireland. You have, with this sort of a blocky pattern here, you have a vortex that's unusually far south near Iceland or north of Iceland, and the southern part of that jet has dipped pretty far to the south. This is as of tonight, and it actually you can see this trough that's swinging eastward through uh, England and Ireland and Scotland, and then into Norway and Sweden and Denmark. That is chilly air that is being forced southward underneath this blocky pattern. And there's probably going to be one last push of cold air at the end of the week with this upper low that comes out down from the north of Iceland that just pivots around and then moves over northern Scotland. I know Coin Pig on the chat board, who's not on tonight, but he was on last night, and I saw a couple of posts today from Severe Weather Europe talking about snow in the Scottish Highlands again, with the pattern that is setting up. And just to look at what this means as far as temperatures are concerned, I mean, if you're in England, you got to be really not happy right now. Uh, Below normal temperatures here. So we're talking, this is, let's just go back up. It's not terrible today. It's actually a little bit above normal. But then as we get into Tuesday, you start to get into these below normal temperatures on the order of about -4 to -6 Celsius now. So translated, that's about 8 to 15 degrees below normal over England, and it only gets darker there from the anomalies as we go into Wednesday and then to Thursday, moderate slightly, and then you get that last shot that comes in over the weekend before things start to. Well, it actually stays pretty chilly into next week for a while before things start to warm up. And as far as the temps go, I mean, I'm just looking at the 2 meter temperatures here. Uh, I don't know. I should use probably the contours. So let's look at the contours. So let's back up and look at the nighttime lows. So that's actually um five. So this is tonight. Actually, this is at midnight tonight in northern Scotland. That is that's not the zero isotherm, but that's the 5 degree isotherm. So you're talking about temperatures in the 30s there. It's 12 Celsius or mid 50s to the south. And then as we go through to tomorrow night, the chilly push gets even more impressive going into Wednesday, where you've got temperatures that don't even make it to 50. I mean, we're talking about 40s and many places low and mid 40s up and down England and Scotland. I mean, this is really cold stuff.
Could you look ahead to Friday and the weekend in and around London? And I ask
Uh,
that question only because, interestingly, the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets are going to be playing a series this weekend in London. Now, I guess it's the good neighbor policy. I'm hearing a lot about cricket out on Long Island at a Long Island stadium. And cricket, of course, is a big thing in Great Britain. So I guess we figure, well, okay, well, why don't we send our national pastime to the UK? And so we're going to have baseball being played at a stadium in London, the Mets and the Phillies this weekend. I'm wondering just what they could expect temperature wise there.
if we use the GFS guidance, I'm actually seeing if I could pull up a model sounding here. The circle of death is going round and round. I don't know if the sounding is. Oh, here it is. So I put it where I think London is, Joe, and it's got this is at noon. It's got a temperature of 54.
Oh,
Okay, and by um and by 6 p.m. at 6 p.m. It looks like it has a temperature of about. Well, let's let the circle of death run again. Round and round and round it goes. Come on, requesting sounding.
I like what Rich Rothmansky says. Mets are playing in London. That means they're going to stink on two continents.
Right. It's going to be in it's going to be in the low to mid 50s throughout the game, and there's going to probably be, this is Friday, Saturday. There may be some showers around as well. So how much fun is that going to be?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll issue rain checks and say, "Oh, come back later this year."
Come back when you have a winning team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention to tell you the truth, so I have no idea. Although that I did read, I thought I read the other day that they were like what 10 games below 500 or something.
Something like that. They're not doing very well.
No,
What are you
for
going to do?
sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some strong thunderstorms. Our David Schwartz on the chat board throwing up some of the information regarding some of the warnings that have been out, and you can see there's a chain of flash flood warnings east of Dallas, just east of Dallas Fort Worth, uh, and then go. Looks like on the Dallas side, it's in a flash flood warning. The Fort Worth side is not, and then they go straight east to the Louisiana state line into southwestern Arkansas. There's a vicious looking line of thunderstorms that just passed through Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's moving eastward, and now just starting to move into northwest Louisiana, northwest of Shreveport. So that's where the busy action is tonight at the moment. We also have some scattered showers around me in North Georgia. Nothing exciting, but there are some heavier downpours and a few heavier thunderstorms in northern uh, parts of northwestern parts of Tennessee, west of Nashville, and western Kentucky into southern Illinois. There's also some hefty thunderstorms now moving across southern Wisconsin. And this was one of the other areas of risk that the Storm Prediction Center was focused on. More showers in the Dakotas and some thunderstorms there. Also in central Montana, there's a snaking line of showers and storms moving eastward, and we've got patchy showers to the west of that going into Washington State. The Storm Prediction Center tonight has a slight risk area up in southern Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, and northeast Iowa. Small portion of eastern Iowa. Marginal risk pushes a little further east. And then you've got this big area of slight risk in southern Oklahoma, north central and northeast Texas, in much of the northern half of Louisiana, western Mississippi, and southern Arkansas. And you saw that line on the radar that's playing through there. And there's some elevated tornado risk of 2 to 5% in both those areas. Tomorrow, we're looking at a slight risk from northeast Kansas up into eastern Minnesota, including Kansas City, Topeka, uh, Des Moines, and Minneapolis, St. Paul, all in that slight risk zone. And there is some tornado risk from southeast Kansas into central Iowa of about 2%. And no severe weather is forecast for day 3, although general thunderstorms are pushed up into western New England, and just about everybody in the east of the Mississippi is under an area of general thunderstorms for Wednesday and Wednesday into Thursday morning. And of course, Joe, that's when we're going to have this next weather system play through. I don't know the way this is playing out. I'm not so sure whether if there are going to be some thunderstorms. This doesn't. I don't know if this is going to be one that produces severe weather.
You mean you're talking about just regular thunderstorms?
Yeah, the ones that are accompanied by strong gusty winds, heavy rain, and occasionally dangerous lightning.
Okay, well, still something that you would not like to be outside in if it does
No,
happen.
but what I'm saying is, aside from the sarcasm, what I'm saying is that I don't know if this is going to be dynamic enough that we would see severe weather risk. Maybe they'll stick a marginal risk in there somewhere. But I don't see this as being, widespread, slight risk or enhanced risk or anything like that.
Okay, well,
Do you disagree? Are
I'm
you on the same page?
Yeah, yeah. I have showers and possible thunderstorms in the forecast for later on in the week, so I would agree with you, and I agree
Okay.
also that the activity would not be anything to write home about. But still, if you hear a few rumbles of thunder or see a flash or two of lightning, it's something to watch for.
All right, rainfall. Now, this is 7-day rainfall, so next Monday night. 3/4 of an inch to an inch, inch and a half plus amounts in upstate New York and into Vermont and parts of New Hampshire. Amounts lighten up a bit once you get down into southern Virginia and into North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, central and southern Georgia, mostly 1/4 of an inch or less, but higher amounts in North Georgia, a little area of an inch and a half plus over me, and also back across Tennessee, kind of patchy as you get into Mississippi. And then you've got some almost 3 inch amounts being indicated in parts of Oklahoma, northeast Texas, and southern Arkansas. And always remember, folks, yeah, we're at that time of year when we start to look at this stuff when it's primarily convective. You kind of give look at these broad brush forecasts and just bear in mind that if there are some heavier thunderstorms, and I'm mainly talking here more about what's going on in the south, not so much what's going on in the northeast, but at least across the south, uh, local thunderstorms could possibly produce double the amounts, which is why you're seeing all these flash flood warnings, and then of course they've had so much rain in the last month or so that the threshold for flooding can't be all that high. So yeah, it's all about this trough in the west and the ridge in the east swapping. And we've got an upper low that comes into the Pacific Northwest. Actually, it did tonight and moves eastward toward Lake Winnipeg and then pivots its way to the Great Lakes and then heads southeast and just kind of hangs around on the latest runs. Instead of diving southeastward to New Jersey, it sort of hangs around over the northern Great Lakes and just rotates away right through the weekend and through much of next week. And then there's another one right behind it. And that takes us to June 15th. So we're going to be under this troughing in the east for a while.
If we see this pattern persist through a good part of the summer, this is going to be one of those Garden of Eden summers. Well, maybe not. A Garden of Eden summer to me is not just below normal temperatures or cooler than normal temperatures for the summertime, but also dry weather. Unfortunately, in this type of pattern with a lot of troughiness, we're probably going to see more in the way of clouds and also periodic showers, which is something we don't exactly need to be into. But I guess you take the good with the bad. What can I say?
Yes. Um, Also, take a note of there's a ridge, there's an upper high over northern Mexico. And while you got a deep trough in the east, it's going to mean for hotter weather that will be in the west. And again, the models toward the end of the forecast period, which would be, mid-month and beyond, that they start, indicating that that heat ridge starts to build up into the plain states, and that maybe eventually, in the latter second half of the month. I mentioned this yesterday, so I'll just mention it again today that maybe the second half of the month, if that eastern trough pulls out, which eventually it's going to, then we're going to be translating over to a hotter pattern uh, where temperatures would be getting into the 90s on a well, I don't want to say a regular basis because we don't know what the short range is going to look like, but you get the idea that it would mean for some hotter weather coming into the east eventually. But that's we're at June, what is it, the 3rd, and we're talking maybe after the 18th or 19th. In the meantime, not much happening rain-wise. You see this weather system coming into the Great Lakes and into the lower Ohio and Tennessee Valley for tomorrow with the downpours and thunderstorms there. And then by the time we get to late Wednesday or Wednesday night, we get into some downpours and maybe some thunderstorms going into Thursday morning. And then after that, the problem is with that upper low and that cold, unstable air. I think what we're going to be seeing, and Joe, you can back me up or disagree, but I think we're generally going to be seeing where we have very cold, unstable air aloft from Thursday through the weekend. So we get into these days where you have self-destruct sunshine and then maybe some scattered showers and some low top thunderstorms that develop in some places from Thursday right through at least Monday.
It's almost a pattern that you see or normally would see in March or April, not necessarily June.
Yes, exactly. But that's a pretty, just what you have it happening here in the eastern part of the United States and also in northwestern Europe, where they're dealing with the upper low from that's north of Iceland. So that's all part of the blocky pattern that has developed. I just went back to the 12Z run because you mentioned about the tropical storm, so I'm seeing what you're talking about here. It actually brings it out of the Northwest Caribbean and then over Northwest Florida, and then it pushes it off North Carolina and goes east northeast. Yesterday's run took it up to 40 and 70. The 18Z has it much more strung out as some kind of closed low coming out of the Northwest Caribbean over southern Florida, and then it goes way out to the southeast, uh, which I would think that kind of would make more sense if it's real. And just for laughs, because we always like to see when we start talking about these tropical systems that the models put up on the long range. it lends confidence in a forecast when you see both the European and the GFS doing it. And guess what? The European's not doing it. So I wouldn't worry too much about something coming out of the tropics at this stage of the game.
No, you got to get them both on the same page, and you want to get them both on the same page within, let's say, 5 days of the event, and don't you know? You see one suggesting something amazing 10 or 12 days out.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
That's not going to happen.
All right, that's just always almost always gone on the next run. All right, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Yes, surely. I've got the. I think tonight we have another retired letter here or retired name. Yes, we continue with the retired tropical systems in the Atlantic Basin today. Today, if I'm just saying this or doing this, I almost feel like I'm on Sesame Street. Today, boys and girls, the letter C. And there were 9 retired names that start with the letter C, Joe. So,
All
and
right, I'm gonna.
if you don't, and there's one name that stands high and above all the others. So you should certainly know that one, which occurred in 1969. Uh, but again, there was that one, and there were 8 others. So
Right. All right, so I'm gonna give you three of them right off the bat. Carol, Camille, Carla.
you've got 3 of them. Yep, Camille,
That's
1969.
three. Now, a bunch of you are putting up Charlie. I don't know that Charlie was retired.
Well, it depends. Is it Charlie with a Y or Charlie with an E?
Um, I don't know that they had. I know there were two Charlies because if you go on the Hurricane Center website, they actually have a an analysis of both Charlies, one in 2005 and another one in 2020.
Well, I will say this: there, one of the C's is Charlie, but it's Charlie with an E, and that was from 2004.
What, Charlie?
Yep.
Okay. And then there's another Charlie, I guess, Char. Why did they do that?
I remember Charlie with a Y.
Right, EY.
Right.
Okay. Um, let's see. Jason Fox says Carmen.
Carmen, no, yes, Carmen is on the list from
Yes.
1974.
Um,
Jason
Patrick.
Fox, Celia, and Celia is also on the list from 1970.
Yes, that was a Corpus Christi storm. Cleo from Patrick Darcy.
Cleo is on the list from 1964.
All right, so we've got five of them so far.
Right.
See, my mind right now is going blank. Oh, thank you, Michael Azera. Connie.
Connie, 1955.
That's
Yes.
correct.
One year before
Um,
this world.
Connie. So now we've got two left. Carol, Camille, Carla, Celia, Cleo, Connie, and you said Charlie with an IE, correct?
Correct.
Okay, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So there's only one left.
No, there were 9.
Oh, two left.
Two
Two
left.
left. Are any of them boys' names?
Bu- 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 One is a boy's name, yes.
Hmm. Patrick Darcy says Caesar.
Caesar, that's right, 1996.
Okay, so that leaves us with one more.
We only have one more
I don't
left.
think there was a Hurricane Cliff of Vincent Croce.
No.
No. Or Clifford. No. Yes, Great Caesar's Ghost, correct. Um, and I don't think Frank Scalera you'll ever have a Hurricane Chucky.
How about if I say Mrs. Brady?
Wasn't Mrs. Brady's name Carol?
Carol,
I don't.
1950.
I mentioned Carol off the bat. I gave you Carol, Camille, and Carla.
Oh, okay.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So we still need one.
I'm trying to figure out which one is bu- 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 bu-
Did you figure out which one has not been?
I think the storm number 9 on this list, which is a woman's name, and this one dates back to 1955. What did we?
1955 with a C.
Oh, wait
Well,
a
we
minute.
have. All right, so we have Carol, Camille, Carla, Celia, Cleo, Connie, Charlie, and Caesar.
Connie, we've done. So that's. I'm trying to. Camille, Carla, Carmen, Carol, Caesar, Charlie. Did we say Cleo? Yeah, we did
Yeah.
say Cleo.
No, we didn't say. Yes, we did say Cleo.
Yeah. And Connie, 1955.
Well,
So which?
Precedipedius is Cora.
No.
No, not a Cora. And this was
I
another
see.
one. No, Connie was in 55.
Yes.
Connie and Diane were 4 days apart into North Carolina.
How about this? As for this final one, dates back to 1970.
1970,
Cleon Cleon Jones.
Cleon Jones. And it was a sea storm. Oh. Hmm. Carol, Camille, Carla, Celia, Cleo,
Oh,
Connie,
we did
Charlie,
say,
and
wait
Caesar.
a minute, we did say Celia, right?
Yes, Joe, we did say Celia.
Uh, there were 9 I'm gonna run down the list of 9. The hell with it.
All right, you know what? Just go. You seem to
Camille,
be you're a little hazy tonight, but go ahead.
Camille, Carla, Carmen. Did we say Carmen?
Uh, I mean I didn't write Carmen down. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So we got them all actually.
Camille, Carla, Carmen, Carol, Celia, Caesar, Charlie, Cleo, and Connie.
Yep, we got them all. So
Yep.
we were struggling for a ninth one, but we had already gotten it. Nice. All right. Well, whatever. Um, well, very good. I thought he was going to go to the B's today because we did the A's yesterday. So yeah, I thought he was going to go to the B's. But the only B storm I could think of was Beulah.
Well, what about the W storms?
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. While we're still here, is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code Spring 2024 because if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off. And I mentioned last night something that Red Skelton had said on his Guzzler's Gin uh, routine, which we touched upon the fact that today that routine might, skirt political correctness. But Red Skelton, as I mentioned last night, Joe, never was a blue comic. He never used any obscenities, and he was a very funny guy. I posted last night after the show Red Skelton's secret to the perfect marriage. I'm not going to go through any of the.
I,
There's like
I, I saw the post.
13. But what gladdened my heart was one of the people who made a comment about that post, a woman by the name of Carol Plath. And she said, Joe, thank you so much for this post. You made my dad laugh out loud. He is 95 years old, doesn't talk very much at all, but this certainly made his day, mine too. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the sponsors and staff, we'd like to thank you for another wonderful evening with Joe and Joe. And if we have brought just 1 second of happiness into your life, then all of the work that we did in putting this show together has certainly come together to be fulfilled. So until tomorrow night when we have a special guest here on Joe and Joe at 7:35, I, on behalf of Mr. Chiaffi, would like to say good night, good health, and may God bless. Good night.
Right. And tomorrow night it's John Molick, the podcast Headlines in History. So join us tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Nighty night, everybody.
Nighty night, folks.